Welcome back to my channel, and I want to say thank you for the get well wishes in the comments. I'm feeling a lot better. So this is going to be a video on why I choose to save my money in Bitcoin. Now, there's usually three different ways that people approach this process, and usually people choose one of these three options, which one of them being gold, one of them being the actual dollar, so paper money, and being Bitcoin. But I'm going to tell you why Bitcoin is a superior asset to all those other forms of currency, and why I choose to save my money in Bitcoin. I saw another creator's thumbnail about this exact idea, so hopefully I remember to leave their video in the comment section below or the description below. So when it comes to saving my money in Bitcoin, I save my Bitcoin in a ledger, and I have other forms of private wallets where I keep the majority of my crypto assets, mostly my altcoins and a few stable coins as well. The first thing I want to talk about is what most people hear when they first get into crypto, and that Bitcoin is mostly compared to something like gold, which I get why the comparison is made, but there is a lot of key differences that differentiate Bitcoin to gold and why I think it's a superior asset. And we're going to keep this extremely simple, by the way. So gold, on one hand, has been around for a lot longer than Bitcoin, of course. It's a solid asset, meaning it is technically a hard asset, because once all the gold on planet Earth is mined, there will be no more gold deposits and no more gold to be mined, right? But in comparison to something like Bitcoin, there's only a 21 million supply, and the rate at which Bitcoin is produced never increases. So unlike gold, I can't just go out and mine more Bitcoin, because there's a certain rate at which Bitcoin is being produced in any given moment in time. If the price of gold was to go up, let's say in the next week or so, like it did the past couple weeks, they could just go mine more gold because it's valuable, and that would slowly start to affect the gold price in the negative direction, because there's just more supply for all the current demand of gold. Now, me personally, I'd rather compare Bitcoin to something like land. There is only so much land on Earth until Elon can get us onto another planet. Now, we also have to understand that Bitcoin is easily divisible, meaning I can split Bitcoins into multiple different pieces. You don't have to buy just one Bitcoin. I can split it up into thousands of little pieces, and that's what we call Satoshis. Now with gold, imagine you having a brick or a bar of gold and trying to split up a piece of gold. You probably have to go somewhere where they could actually melt the gold down for you into smaller increments and then be able to make it divisible. It's much harder to make gold divisible than it is to make a single Bitcoin divisible, which is why there's these subtle differences between gold and Bitcoin. Not to mention that Bitcoin is also borderless. If I want to cross the border with more than $10,000 worth of gold, I wouldn't be able to cross the border without declaring that gold, right? Even if there's a couple thousands, I might even have a problem getting across the border. And imagine trying to transport that much money in gold, even if it's hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars worth of gold. It's extremely hard to transfer. On the other hand, if I'm holding my wealth and I'm saving in Bitcoin, if I ever decide that I want to leave the country for whatever reason or go live in another nation, it's as easy as me having my Bitcoin on a ledger, a little USB stick, flying to a brand new country and going to start my new life. Now, this is not financial advice, and I'm not encouraging anyone to do these things. This is just my perspective on the matter, okay? So don't come back to me or say this guy said anything. I'm just giving you my perspective on things, okay? But let me get into some of the big hitters and bigger reasons why I save my money in Bitcoin. For one, it is the hardest asset in human history ever. There's no debate about that. There will never be a change in the code. The code is actually immutable. When you price Bitcoin against USD, CAD, yen, euros, pounds, whatever, over time, if you look at the chart, the hard asset continuously rises in price. So if I choose to save my money in Bitcoin versus saving my money in dollars, I know that they're printing my dollars every single day, and the overall value of my money is being inflated every single day. There's a reason why the Fed tries to get inflation down every 4 years in the business cycle. And not to get too technical about that, but they know that if the inflation rate is 2% a year, that means I'm losing value on my dollars 2% a year, versus being able to hold something like Bitcoin that perpetually goes up over any inflated currency. And when they choose to print the dollar is usually during recessionary periods, which is why Bitcoin and other assets like such as the stock market and real estate actually go up in some of the hardest economic conditions for people who only hold their value and their wealth in dollars. Now, I get this misconception that crypto is scammy and crypto is unsafe and it's unsecure, and I kind of want to destroy all those thoughts in just a few sentences if possible. Now, I'm going to make a very simple comparison. You hold your dollars in the bank can decide to freeze your assets, the bank can either go under, the bank can decide that they don't want you to bank with them, right? These are all strong possibilities. If you have your Bitcoin in a ledger, you control the keys to the asset, you control the password to the asset, and only you can go in and out and decide whether you want to sell or send money or buy anything within that ledger. You get what's called a seed phrase, and this seed phrase is either 12 or 24 random words in a random position that only you have access to. Much more reliable than having a centralized entity like the bank hold your funds on your behalf, and most of the time it's not even your money because they can take it from you whenever they want. Not to mention most of the time they're making money on your money versus you being able to hold your Bitcoin in a ledger or another type of private wallet and actually make money on your own money. High interest yield savings accounts versus Bitcoin. If you look at how much you'd make in a high interest yield savings account, let's just say the highest you can make is 5%. This past year alone, Bitcoin was up over 100% in value. So why would I save my money in a high interest yield savings account that's giving me 5% when I could hold my money in Bitcoin and make potentially over 100% in appreciation, or I'm just getting yield on my Bitcoin? That number could actually be a lot higher, which, by the way, I don't advise. This is why you save. I only save my money in Bitcoin. I just want to make that very clear. Now, when it comes to the actual network of Bitcoin and these miners and computers, I'm not going to make it complicated. I'm going to make it extremely simple for you. Think about a small town or a city and think about the power grid or the general power plant that they have in that particular town or city. If I want to shut down the power for the entire city, the first place or the only place I would even need to go is that central power plant, and all the electricity that's usually distributed throughout across that town would usually be cut off if I attack that one central area. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is almost as if we all had our own power plants on our own properties and they were all connected. So if one power plant was to go down, like let's say my house was able to go down, my neighbors, right, would be able to supply power to me because they have their own power plants in their own backyard, if that makes any sense. Hopefully that made sense. So Bitcoin works as if we all had our own power plants in our backyards, or own power grids in our backyards, versus having one central power grid for the entire town, like a bank. So if that bank shuts down or goes bankrupt, we all lose our money. And everyone likes to say, oh, but my money's insured up to 100,000 or 200,000, depending on where you live in the world, right? Most of the time, it's the larger accounts that get prioritized first. So when they do lending to big companies and businesses and things like that, where the bank actually relies on them to continuously generate revenue so that they can come back and get more loans. That's why guys like Robert Kiyosaki and Grant Cardone have hundreds of millions, if not billions at this point, in real estate debt, because the banks can't afford for these people to go bankrupt, because if they go bankrupt, the banks go bankrupt, right? So me at the bottom, if I'm banking with Chase, Wells Fargo, RBC, Scotiabank, whatever it may be, if the bank goes under, best believe they're not worried about me anytime soon, or if at all. And we've seen this across the board from different banks that have went down, like Silicon Valley Bank and tons and tons and tons of different banks across the globe. I don't really have to tell you. You've probably seen it for yourself. So understanding that Bitcoin is also decentralized, so there's no single point of failure, is one of the biggest reasons why Bitcoin has a ton of security. Not to mention, there's no middleman. If you want to send me money or I want to send you money, we do it trustless and permissionless. So I can send it directly to you versus me having to go through an institution like a bank or a Western Union or a Remitly, right? And have them send the money to you, and have you, if you want to send me money, send it to them and they send it to me. You don't need the middleman in between, because all they're really doing is eating you up on fees and making money off of your hard-earned money, which is why I also decide to save my money in Bitcoin, because if I ever want to transfer my wealth to anybody else, even if it's a family member, or if I perish and it's my children, or literally anybody, I can do that without the intermediary of having a bank, and even having the government in between either. Now, my girlfriend and I went to Miami for my 30th birthday last year, right? And I'm actually making this video on my birthday for you guys. That's how much I love you guys, and I love YouTube and crypto, of course. But when we went to Miami last year, I brought my laptop. I put some money on a private wallet, went to Miami. We actually ended up going on a cruise in between staying in Miami. So we're there for about a week and a bit, week and like a couple days or whatever. And I needed money. So I simply went on my laptop, sent it to my bank, and that was it. I didn't have to declare that I brought X amount of dollars over the border. They never stopped me and asked questions about my wealth. No, my wealth is all self-sovereign. That means I have full control and custody over it. And that's proof. If I had money that I needed in cash or whatever the case may be, they definitely, best believe, would have stopped me and asked me a ton of questions, and I would have to declare and probably would have had to pay a fee to get the money over. It's madness. You don't need that in your life. Trust me, you don't need it in your life. And one of the biggest reasons is if I'm saving my money in dollars, I know that other than a high yield savings account, my money isn't really growing that much. When I have something that's so revolutionary as Bitcoin, why would I not have it in Bitcoin and have it go up over time? There's actually no benefit to you holding your money in dollars anymore because they print it into oblivion. And not even in gold anymore. And for all the other points I made where it's hard to transfer gold, it's not borderless, it's not easily divisible, right? It hasn't really went up that much over a 15 to 20 year period. If we really look at the numbers, you're holding the fastest growing asset, which is Bitcoin. And potentially you even have a gateway, if you choose so, to join the fastest moving asset class in human history. And not to mention that Bitcoin is traded universally. That means anyone on the globe can participate in this asset class and can participate in Bitcoin and crypto. I don't want to leave crypto out. I love crypto too. So even though Bitcoin is kind of crypto, but I'm really talking about altcoins, but you kind of get the deal, okay? You kind of get the deal. So I much rather have my money in something like Bitcoin and save in Bitcoin while also having an altcoin portfolio, which you can check out on this video up here. And if you're looking for some advice on how you should approach this whole crypto investing thing, click this video up here and I'll walk you through that. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.